In last tutorial, we have built a nice little console application. So let's run it and see what we have. So the application has a menu with 5 options. With option 1, it lets the user to add a new movie. With option 2, display all movies. With option 3, update an existing movie. With option 4, delete a movie. And finally with exit as option 5. So let's exit out. So in this tutorial, we are going to do a little housekeeping, error handling, and a little fine tuning. Okay, so let's get going. All right, so first thing I want to do a little organizing or housekeeping. So I'm going to enclose the stuff that we are not using. I'm going to enclose in a region to collapse it and get it out of the way. So let's go ahead and do that. So I selected all this commented out method calls, and I'm going to press Ctrl KS and select the region and type in old method calls. Okay, now I can collapse this and get them out of the way. So we get a little cleaner appearance. Okay. So the next thing I want to do, I want to check, browse the code and see where we can potentially get an exception. So let's go with the first method here, the menu function. These 2 lines seems to be okay, but this third line, we are dealing with user input. So there is always a potential of receiving an incorrect option, and that might cause an issue. Let's continue on. Down below here, again, we have a console.readline. We're receiving user inputs, and that could be a problem. And same thing here with ID and title, and as well as here and over here. Okay, so we got quite a few places where we can potentially receive an error or exception. And down below here with the delete movie. So here the first thing that stands out, we are dealing with an external file. So there's always a chance that the file being accidentally deleted or renamed or moved to a different directory, so on and so forth. So all these functions actually have this potential of causing an exception because of that external file. So let's start fixing that, and then we'll move on to the other ones. All right, so probably the best thing we could do, we could wrap this. Actually, before we do that, let's cause the problem and see what happens. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to rename this file and change the name. That's something that doesn't exist, and let's try to run this application and see what happens. Okay, so I changed the movie name from movies2 to movies3.xml. I'm going to run my application. Now, if I select option 2 to display all the movies, I'm going to crash. Okay, so I'm getting a system IO file not found exception, and the message says could not find the file in this directory with the file name, with that file name. Okay, so that's the error we are getting. So let's fix that. So what I'm going to do is wrap this code here with a try catch block. So I'm going to press Ctrl KS and type in try and hit enter. So now our code is wrapped with a try catch block. So I'm going to add a parameter of E here for exception, or EX for exception. I can just type in exception. So now, once we get the exception, we'll come in here and type in what we want to happen is we want to print out the message that's coming from the exception. So console.writeline exception dot message. We want to print that out to the screen. So let's run this again and let's see what happens now. Actually, I think this is the add method. No, this is the delete method. So let's apply that to apply the same thing to our get movies method, and let's test it on this method. So Control KS, try catch EX for exception, and type in here console.writeline ex.message. Okay, now let's test it out. So now if I select option 2 to get all movies, and we have, instead of the application crashing, we have the error message printed out on the screen, which is better. The application at least doesn't crash. Okay, so I'm going to say no to continue and exit the application. I'm going to wrap all the all other methods with that same try catch block. Okay, so we did delete. Let's do the same thing for update. Exception EX. Let's get rid of this line of code. And do a console.writeline ex.message. Okay, let's repeat the same process for the other methods. And I think we did all 4 methods. So let's run this and test them out. So if I select one, let's give it an ID of 9, title of Shrek, and we'll get the exception. But the application doesn't crash, we just received the exception. Now we know what to do. So let's continue. Actually, say yes. Let's try number 2, same thing. Yes, continue. Number 3, so let's select number 1 to update. New title, Shrek. Could not find. That's good. Number 4, delete. Select the first movie, and we got the same error, notifying the user that the file doesn't exist. So let's exit out, say no. Okay, so we took care of that. Now let's rename our file name back to what it was originally. Movies 2.xml, and rerun this, make sure it's still working. If I select option 2, our movie is displayed. So we are back to our working position. All right, so the next error or possible exception is this user input. So there is always a chance of user typing in something incorrect. So So we are getting the user input here. So we are looking for numbers, options 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First of all, we want to limit the options to those specific numbers. Second of all, what if the user types in ABC, alphanumeric character? So we need to consider those two options, the possibilities, where a user can type in something that we don't want. Okay. So let's address those two issues. First of all, if it's a different character, let's see what happens. So I'm going to put a breakpoint. Well, right now we're getting a string, right? So that's a string. And if we type in anything other than numbers, it's still going to work, but it's not going to do anything, I think. Let's see what happens. So I typed in a alphanumeric character, a letter, and the input is, let's give us 0. Let's do, I think we just terminated the application. Let's try again. So if I type in S, hit enter, we are getting S. And if I do F11, step into it, I'm still getting S here. So the input is S. Okay. So it's falling through, and since it can't find the option in any of the cases, it's going to default option, and it's going to exit the program. So let's continue. So basically, that's what's happening. If the option doesn't exist, it's exiting the application without notifying the user. Well, S is not a valid option, you know what I'm saying? So basically, we want the application to notify user when an incorrect key is pressed or option selected. So again, if I type in K, it's going to exit the application because it's going to come here into the switch statement. It won't find number 1, number 2, or 3, 4. So it's going to go to the default one and exit here. Okay, so we have to address that. So to address that, the best thing to do probably would be convert this to an int before sending in to the next method call as a string. So I'm going to switch this to an int and then parse this as an int.parse. I think I deleted something without realizing it, so let's try again. int.parse and enclose the console.writeLine inside the brackets. Okay, so that's going to take care of that. And now we can call a toString method here, and that should take care of that. Okay, let's try that out again. Okay, so let's run it. So now if I type in J, it's going to give me an exception. That's because it's not able to convert to an int. Okay, so that's another problem now. So the error we are getting, the exception we are getting, system format exception, input string was not in correct format. So instead of using int.parse, we are going to use tryparse. Okay. So to use tryparse, I'm going to split this statement into two pieces. So the first one will be declaring the variable. So I'm going to put a semicolon here and split this into two parts. So here I'm declaring the variable, and here I want to try to parse the console.readline user input. So int.tryparse. And when we use tryparse, we have another parameter that we need to satisfy. So we have the string s right here, the console.run will be the string s parameter. And then we need an out parameter. So the out parameter will be this input here. So once we grab and parse it, we want to assign this variable to the result. So we're going to say out input. Again, what's going to happen is it's going to parse this console.writeline input and then assign this variable to the result. Okay, let's try it again. So let's type in G, hit enter, and now we are not getting an exception anymore. And also, another beauty of this, if it can't convert or parse it, it will just give it a 0 value to it. All right, so we're not getting an exception anymore. We just get a 0 if the value doesn't exist or the character doesn't exist. Okay, so that's another benefit of using tryparse over just int.parse. Okay, so if we step through it, it will again hit the default option of the switch statement and exit out. So we don't want that to happen. So we want to give a notification to user that the selection is incorrect, invalid. All right, so I'm going to add a while loop. So while input, let's actually put the restriction here too actually. So the while input is smaller than 1 or input larger than 5. In that case, I want to print invalid entry. Please try again. Okay. And let's try that out. So I'm going to enter W and ooh. So it's all right. That wasn't that. So let's find out what happened here. So we entered an invalid option and it was 0. It turned into a 0 because when W is not an integer, and it came into our loop, inside our loop here, and since the option was smaller than 1, we kept repeating this here. We don't want that to happen. We want to actually let's see. So we printed out the error. Then we want to clear this. Actually, no. for here, we want to clear the screen. Console.clear. And then we want to print the error. And then actually let's print out this menu and the selection part. So copy and paste here. So now here it's going to, and then let's try this again, actually copy and paste these 2 lines as well. So it's going to wait for us for another entry here. Since we use that input there, we don't have to type in int again. Actually, I don't need this line. Okay. So I think that should take care of it. Let's try again. So number 2, that worked. Okay, continue, yes. Let's try a different option. Let's enter a character, let's say Q. So we got invalid entry, please try again, and we got the options displayed again. That's good. E, same thing. Perfect, so that's what we wanted. So it's printing out this error message here. We entered an invalid entry, try again. Then it's giving us the option to re-enter it. So if we enter a correct input, we get the result. So that's all good. Let's exit out. Actually, exit. Okay. So that took care of that problem. Okay. All right. So next. So over here we accomplished 2 things. The first thing was we made sure we can convert to an int, and then we limited the input from 1 to 5. So anything other than 1 to 5 will come through here and get into the loop and keep displaying the error and give us the option to re-enter it. Okay, so that's all good. Okay. So I think we took care of most of the problems. Let's do a little fine tuning as well. Let's say this error code, I want to display that in a different color. I want to do it red, maybe. Or display it below. Right below here, below the menu, instead of all the way from the top. And then I want to change the color to a different color for that error. Let's go with red. Console.foreground color equals console color dot red. Okay. And then after the error, I want to reset the color back to yellow. So console dot reset color. Okay. Let's try one more time. If I enter R instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'll get the error message here, invalid entry, try again, please try again. Okay, beautifully displayed in red. It kind of stands out more. All right, so if I type in number 2, I get the list of movies. If I continue and enter something else, say for instance O, and we get the error message printed out. Okay, so we took care of our exceptions and we did a little housekeeping and then fine tuning, and that should do it for this tutorial. All right, until the next one, take it easy.